Right. Well, US President Donald Trump has blasted the censorship of a report about Joe Biden, calling it terrible and corrupt. His comments came after Facebook and Twitter censored an American newspaper report that alleges Biden met with Ukrainian business associates of his son, despite denying for years he had any connection to his son's questionable professional dealings.
He lied to you over and over because he's trying to cover up a massive pay-for-play scandal at the heart of his vice presidency, and everybody knows it. Everybody in Washington knows it. We've known it for a long time. The fact is, there was never an administration more corrupt than the Obama-Biden administration. There was never.
Right, time now for my international panel. We might have a bit of a technical issue, so I'm going to start with you, Corey Bernardi, first, coming to us from Adelaide. These claims, Joe Biden claims, and then the fact that they're not really being aired or circulated only weeks out from the election when they are relevant. The president went pretty hard at a rally. Where do you think this is headed?
Well, I hope it does get the ventilation it deserves because, Peter, they're not claims. These are actual emails that have been taken from Hunter Biden's laptop. There's also evidence, I have to say, that's been put out by Rudy Giuliani today that suggests Hunter Biden was putting half of his ill-gotten gains into his father's pocket. Now, this is a scandal of unprecedented proportions, I've got to tell you, and the American people have long suspected that there's been a cover-up, both with the Clinton Foundation, if we go through that. We had Barack Obama, of course, setting off civil organisations such as the ATO pursuing their enemies, the American Tax Office, not the Australian one. And now we've got a pay-for-play scandal involving Joe Biden, which he's denied. He's denied everything that the Democrats have accused Donald Trump of. It appears they are guilty of themselves. This is projection on the broader scale. It is an absolute scandal, and I hope Donald Trump prevails on November the 3rd.
If it's from a newspaper report, if it's written in the way, credibly these things should be written, why on earth the play by the Facebooks and the Twitter to restrict traffic? I mean, this is a real concern if it's at the distribution point, which is what these big players are, these tech players. If it's at the distribution point, what does it say about democracy, particularly in an election campaign?
Oh, Peter, this is hugely concerning. What we have is these tech oligarchs, as I would describe them, that are now deciding whether you and the consumer is fit or worthy of seeing the news that they don't want you to see. And so they blocked, I think, the Trump campaign advisor's Twitter account simply for sharing the information about Joe Biden. And they've tried to ban any links to it. Now, I understand one of these tech oligarchs has come out and apologised for that, but it's not the point. We've just caught them on this one single occasion. Imagine how often it's happening. They are stopping us from knowing what is going on because they don't like the politics of who, or they prefer the politics of who it's impacting. And I don't know where we can go for this. I think there's a very strong case now to actually break the nexus, this control that they have, because the social media sphere is bigger than the mainstream media now.
And look, this is one of the big issues here in Australia too, with the laws that they pay appropriate money and that they must be, inside the regulation regime. They've fought hard against that because they know Australia would be used as template legislation around the world. We talk, in that case, it's about tax revenue missing from a country. In this case, it's about interference with democracy. I mean, it couldn't get any worse in terms of the impact. And if it's about politics, that's one thing. If it's about, positions on climate change or positions on gender or all the other things that people now go to social media to inform themselves about so that there is a robust and fair debate, this is dangerous territory, Corey.
It's hugely alarming. I mean, if this happens in China, we sit there and criticise it and say, the one-party state doesn't assist in in the dissemination of ideas. It stops things that it doesn't like. We complain about our very own ABC because it won't have a rational debate about refugees or about climate change policy. But we've always presumed the internet is, I'm not going to say unfiltered, but it's been an opportunity for people to present
that's how they sold
diverse
it.
views.
Remember way back when you were in the Parliament in the Howard years, when the internet arrived in Australia, I worked for the then Communications Minister Richard Alston in the very early days, and then at the end of the Howard years I worked for another Communications Minister, Helen Coonan, and it changed so dramatically. But when the internet first came out, there was this whole debate around the world. Should we regulate it? Should it be like all the other information forums? But it was meant to be this free and easy place, and there was a real pushback from Silicon Valley, and all the legislators around the world fell for it, you know, and it moves porn, abuse of children, you know, the criminal underclass. I mean, there's a lot of good online, but there's a lot of trouble online as well.
There's a huge amount of trouble, Peter, but...
No, please go.
So I was just going to say, one of the problems we have is that these platforms, I mean, we're talking about Facebook and Twitter, are not held accountable for the information that goes out there, like a News Corp website would. If they publish a content on that website that is offensive or wrong, or they allow comments that are defamatory, they are held accountable. That doesn't happen in the social media space, but it should. They are disseminators of information. They are publishers. And I think that's got to be the approach. And if they won't accept responsibility, if they won't pay their taxes, break them up and move them on and allow alternatives to flourish. It is just scandalous. And this is the tip of the iceberg, I suspect.
So I've got a bit of an admission here. I've become a bit of, well, I quite liked her anyway, but I've become a particularly big fangirl of Judge Amy Coney Barrett. I've been watching a lot of that testimony at night. I mean, she is flawless. And mine like a steel trap. They're trying, these, you know, 80-year-old plus senators who are highly, highly partisan and using it for theatre, trying to catch her out, you know, on this case and that case. She has not got a note in front of her, and her recall of the rationale behind her judgment and her defence of black letter law and the Constitution as it was written. I mean, it's a masterclass, Cora. She's fantastic.
She is fantastic, and I've been watching it too, Peter. Unfortunately, when the Democratic senators ask their questions, my IQ declines by about 30 points because they're so stupid. I mean, one of these senators asked whether Amy Coney Barrett had ever been charged with a sexual offence or had sexual harassment complaints been made against her. Another one, which I thought was preposterous, another one asked whether what a super precedent was and whether she would overturn them. And Judge Coney Barrett said, well, can you explain to me what you mean by super precedent? And of course the senator couldn't. But then Coney Barrett embarrassed her further. It's extraordinary. It's been riveting viewing, and this is, I think, one of the greatest nominees to the US Supreme Court that I have ever seen, and I think she will do an amazing job there. It's just wonderful to see.
Yeah, and even her haters can't come at her you know, jurisprudence and her legal skill. It's phenomenal. They have to pick on other things, but not her legal capacity. Cora Bernardi, thank you for your time.
You're always welcome, Peter. Thank you.